Leave that seat now! This ticket proves it.
Move or security comes!
Check the system first. You humiliated your own partner.
We failed you.
Move out of that seat, ma'am, or I will have security remove you in front of everyone. The words cut through the first-class cabin before the aircraft had even left the gate. Ava Morgan looked up from seat 2A. Her hand stayed still on the edge of her laptop. Her boarding pass lay open on the tray table beside a half-full glass of water. Outside the oval window, ground crews moved beneath the wing in orange vests. Inside, the cabin went quiet in that strange way public spaces do when everyone hears something wrong, but no one wants to be the first to admit it. The cream leather seats glowed under soft white cabin lights. Overhead bins clicked shut. Somewhere behind Ava, a suitcase wheel squeaked. Then silence again. Claire Reynolds stood in the aisle above her. She was 44, polished, neat, and very sure of her uniform. Her blonde hair was pinned into a tight bun. Her navy jacket had no wrinkle. Her smile was small, fixed, and cold around the edges. Beside her stood Diane Whitaker, 58, wrapped in a cream blazer, pearls at her throat, gold watch flashing whenever she moved her wrist. She did not look embarrassed. She looked inconvenienced. "That is my seat," Diane said, loud enough for the first 2 rows to hear. "I always sit there." Ava blinked once. Not from fear, from disbelief. She was 35. Dressed in a simple navy blazer, dark slacks, and black flats comfortable enough for a long walk through an airport terminal. Her hair was pulled back neatly. No diamonds, no entourage, no loud display of wealth. Just a black leather tote, a laptop, and the quiet composure of a woman who had spent years learning that power did not need to announce itself. Claire held a tablet against her chest. "Ma'am, there seems to be a misunderstanding," she said. "Mrs. Whitaker is one of Crestline Air's most valued platinum guests. We are asking you to help us accommodate her." Ava slowly reached for her boarding pass. The paper made a soft sound as she lifted it. "My name is Ava Morgan," she said. "This is my assigned seat. I booked it 3 weeks ago." Claire glanced at the pass, but only for a moment. Not long enough to care. Diane gave a short laugh through her nose. "Honey, first class can be confusing if you do not travel often." A man across the aisle lowered his newspaper. A woman in the row behind Ava stopped scrolling on her phone. Near the galley, someone whispered, then went quiet. Ava felt an old weight settle in her chest. She had felt it in boardrooms, at hotel counters, in private clubs, at investor dinners where men asked which executive she worked for before realizing her name was on the building. That same question always came wrapped in different words. "How did you get here? Who let you in?" Ava did not answer with anger. She had learned long ago that anger made people comfortable. It gave them the story they already wanted to believe. So she sat taller. "I paid for this seat," Ava said. "I followed every rule. I will not move because another passenger prefers it." Claire's cheeks tightened. Diane leaned closer, her perfume sharp in the cooled cabin air. "People like me have meetings to attend," she said. The words were quiet, but they landed everywhere. Ava looked at her, then at Claire, then at the passengers, pretending not to listen. People like me, there it was. Not hidden well enough. Not hidden at all. Claire lowered her voice. "Ma'am, we can offer you another seat." "Why?" Ava asked. One word. Simple. Heavy. Claire hesitated. For the first time, the cabin seemed to breathe around them. A phone camera clicked on somewhere behind row 3. Another screen tilted upward from a lap. Diane's expression hardened. She was not used to being questioned. Not by a young black woman in the seat she believed belonged to her by habit, status, and years of people stepping aside. Ava's phone buzzed on the tray table. A preview flashed across the screen. Crestline board briefing moved to noon. Morgan Systems contract ready for final review. Claire saw only a glimpse. Not enough to understand. Diane saw nothing at all. Neither woman knew the passenger they were trying to move was the founder and CEO of the company, Crestline Air, needed to rescue its failing customer service systems. Neither knew Ava Morgan held influence large enough to shake the boardroom. Neither knew seat 2A was no longer just a seat. It was becoming evidence. Claire Reynolds stared at Ava's phone for half a second too long. The screen had already gone dark, but something about the message stayed in the air. Board briefing. Contract review. Words that did not fit the picture Claire had built in her mind. Still, she pushed the doubt away. People did that when the truth made them uncomfortable. They reached for the version of the world that let them keep standing where they were. Claire straightened her shoulders. "Ma'am, I am trying to resolve this professionally." Ava looked at her. "Then do that." The answer was quiet, but it had weight. Diane Whitaker let out a small sound, almost a laugh, almost a scoff. She turned toward the man across the aisle as if inviting him to share her disbelief. He did not. He only folded his newspaper lower and watched. Claire noticed that. She also noticed the phones, one in row 3, another near the bulkhead, a third held low by a young woman in a gray sweatshirt, her eyes wide, her thumb steady on the screen. Emily Foster had started recording without fully deciding to. She was 28, a freelance editor from Portland, flying to New York to visit her father after a heart procedure. She had spent enough years cutting documentary footage to know the difference between confusion and a pattern. This was not confusion. This had a shape. Claire lowered her voice and leaned toward Ava. "You are holding up boarding." Ava did not move. Boarding is continuing. Behind them, a roller bag bumped softly against an armrest. A passenger murmured an apology. The ordinary sounds of travel tried to continue around the confrontation, but they sounded thinner now. Fragile. Diane tapped her gold watch. "I have a connection to make," she said. "I have a board dinner tonight. I cannot sit just anywhere." Ava's eyes lifted to Diane. "Neither can I." Diane's mouth tightened. For a moment, the older woman looked almost offended that Ava had answered at all. In Diane's world, service was given to her quickly. Space opened for her easily. Problems dissolved before they reached her hands. She had mistaken a lifetime of accommodation for proof that she deserved more than other people. Claire turned her tablet toward herself and tapped the screen. Her fingers moved fast, but not confidently. The system showed what Ava had already said. Seat 2A confirmed. Ava Morgan. Crestline Platinum. Checked in on time. Clear. Simple. Legal. Claire felt a small heat rise under her collar. She could fix this now. She could turn to Diane and say, "Mrs. Whitaker, your assigned seat is across the aisle." She could apologize to Ava. She could stop the mistake before it became something larger. But Diane was staring at her, waiting, expecting. And expectations from wealthy passengers had trained Claire longer than any company manual ever had. Claire locked the tablet screen. "We have another excellent first-class seat available," she said. Ava's voice stayed even. "Is Mrs. Whitaker assigned to that seat?" Claire did not answer. Ava waited. The cabin waited with her. That silence did more damage than any argument could have. Diane leaned in, her perfume cutting through the cool cabin air. "Young lady, you are making this much bigger than it needs to be." "No," Ava said. "I am keeping it exactly as big as it is." Emily's breath caught behind her phone. The sentence landed clean, no shouting, no insult, just a line drawn in plain daylight. Claire's jaw tightened. "Ma'am, if you refuse a crew member's reasonable request, we may need to involve the cabin supervisor." Ava folded her hands in her lap. "Please do." Diane's eyes flashed with satisfaction, as if escalation meant victory. She shifted closer to Claire and lowered her voice. But Emily's phone was closer than either of them realized. "Take care of this," Diane whispered. "I know how good staff handle difficult passengers." Claire's face barely moved, but her eyes did. Ava saw it as so did Emily. The small surrender. The moment a person chooses comfort over fairness, not because they do not know better, but because knowing better would cost them something. At the front galley, a tall man in a Navy supervisor jacket stepped through the curtain. Mark Sullivan moved with practiced authority, the kind that made junior crew members stand straighter before he even spoke. He was 47, broad-shouldered, clean-shaven, with silver at his temples, and a face trained to look calm under pressure. Claire turned toward him too quickly. Relief crossed her face. Not innocence, relief. Mark stopped beside her and looked first at Diane, then at Ava. Not at the boarding pass, not at the tablet, at Ava. That told her almost everything. "What seems to be the problem here?" he asked. Ava lifted her boarding pass before Claire could speak. "There is no problem with the seat," she said. "There is a problem with who your crew believes deserves it." Mark Sullivan held Ava's boarding pass between two fingers, as if it were something he did not want touching his skin for long. He looked at it, then at the tablet in Claire's hand, then at Diane Whitaker, standing with her chin lifted and her handbag pressed against her ribs like a shield made of money. The truth was right there. Seat 2A, Ava Morgan, confirmed. Mark saw it, Claire knew he saw it, Ava knew he saw it too. But truth is not always what people obey first. Sometimes they obey habit. Sometimes they obey status. Sometimes they obey the quiet fear of upsetting the person who complains louder. Mark handed the boarding pass back. "Miss Morgan," he said, his voice polished and low, "we are not questioning that you have documentation." Ava's eyes stayed on him. "Documentation?" "There may be a system issue," he continued. A man in row 1 stopped adjusting his cufflinks. Margaret Lewis, an older woman across the aisle with silver hair and a blue travel scarf, turned her head slowly toward Mark. She had seen enough unfairness in her life to recognize when someone was dressing it in clean language. Ava placed the boarding pass on the tray table. "There is no system issue," she said. "Your tablet confirms my seat." Claire's fingers tightened around the device. Mark gave her a quick glance. Too quick. It told the cabin more than he meant it to. Diane stepped closer. "This is ridiculous. I have flown this route for years. Everyone on this airline knows where I sit." That sentence floated over the cream leather seats. "Everyone knows where I sit." It sounded small. It was not. It was the language of a world where some people believed comfort could become ownership if repeated often enough. Ava turned toward Diane. "A preference is not a reservation." Diane's face flushed. Claire inhaled sharply. Emily Foster's phone held steady in row 4. Her heart was pounding now, but her hands had gone calm. She had learned that when something wrong is happening, the camera must not flinch. Mark shifted his weight and lowered his voice. "Miss Morgan, I would advise you to accept the alternative seat. It is still first class. You will receive the same service." Ava looked toward the open aisle, then back at him. "Then why can she not take it?" The question cut clean through the cabin. No anger, no drama, just logic. Mark did not answer. Diane did. "Because I asked for this one." Ava nodded once, slowly. "And I paid for this one." A few passengers moved in their seats. Not much. Just enough. A man who had been pretending to read lowered his magazine. A woman near the window pressed her lips together. The mood shifted by inches, but inches matter when silence begins to loosen. Mark felt it. His face did not change, but his neck reddened above his collar. Diane felt it too, and she hated it. Sympathy was moving away from her, not loudly, not with speeches, just in the way eyes no longer rushed to protect her pride. She turned toward Claire and spoke softly. "Do something." Claire stared at the carpet for half a second. In that half second, she saw the easier path and the right path. They were not the same. She also saw her mortgage, her mother's medical bills, the performance review waiting at the end of the month. She saw Diane's name in the premium passenger notes. She saw Mark standing beside her, already choosing which version of the story would survive in the report. Then Diane's hand moved. Quick, practiced, almost invisible. A folded stack of bills slipped from Diane's palm into Claire's hand. Claire froze. Emily's camera caught it. Ava saw it too. So did Margaret. Claire's hand closed around the money before her conscience could stop it. Her face went pale, but her body continued the lie. She tucked her hand near the pocket of her jacket. Mark looked away at the exact wrong moment, or maybe the exact intended one. Diane smiled. "I trust Crestline still knows how to take care of its real customers," she said. The words dropped into the cabin like a lit match. Real customers. Margaret's eyes narrowed. The man across the aisle whispered something under his breath. Emily swallowed hard, knowing she had just recorded the moment when a seating dispute became something darker. Ava slowly placed 3 things on the tray table. Her boarding pass, her platinum card, her phone face up. The screen lit again. Rachel Monroe. Morgan Systems Executive Office. Then a message preview appeared beneath the call. Crestline board waiting. Final vote depends on your approval. Mark did not read it. Claire did not read it. Diane did not read it. But Emily's camera did. Ava let the call ring once, twice, then she silenced it. Her face remained calm, but something in her eyes had changed. The hurt was still there. So was restraint. But beneath both was a kind of clarity that made the air feel colder. Mark clasped his hands in front of him. Miss Morgan, this is your final opportunity to cooperate. Ava looked up at him. Her voice was quiet. Every passenger heard it. I am cooperating with the truth. The cabin went still. Mark's mouth tightened. Claire's hand trembled near her pocket. Diane's smile thinned. Outside the window, the wing lights blinked against the gray morning sky. Inside seat 2A, Ava Morgan sat perfectly straight. A woman they believed they could move because they had not yet understood what she carried. Not just a ticket, not just a name, a reckoning. Mark Sullivan did not like the way the cabin had gone quiet. Quiet passengers were not always calm passengers. Sometimes quiet meant they were watching too closely, listening too carefully, remembering too much. He felt the heat of several phone cameras on his face. Claire stood beside him, one hand near her jacket pocket, trying not to move. The folded bills Diane had slipped her felt heavier than paper should feel. She could feel the edges through the fabric. Every second they stayed there, they seemed to grow sharper. Mark leaned closer to Ava. Miss Morgan, he said, choosing each word with care, I understand that you believe you are being treated unfairly. Ava looked at him. I do not believe it. I am describing it. The answer landed hard. Mark's eyes flicked toward the passengers. Too many were recording now. He needed control, fast. This aircraft cannot depart while we have an unresolved passenger conflict, he said. Ava's voice stayed calm. There is no conflict in the system. There is only one passenger refusing her assigned seat, and 3 employees pressuring the wrong person. Diane let out a sharp breath. How dare you accuse me of anything? Ava turned to her. I described your behavior. You recognized yourself. A murmur moved through first class. Small, human, unplanned. Diane heard it and stiffened. For the first time, her confidence cracked at the edges. She looked around for someone to smile with her, someone to dismiss Ava with a glance, someone to make the old order return. No one did. Margaret Lewis sat upright across the aisle, her hands folded over a worn leather purse. She had been married to a school principal for 42 years. She had spent half her life telling children to tell the truth, even when adults made it costly. Now she watched grown people fail the lesson. Mark lowered his voice. Miss Morgan, I would advise you not to make this difficult. Ava took a slow breath. There it was. The warning beneath the politeness. The familiar pressure. The soft threat that lived in hotel lobbies, office elevators, courthouse hallways, and airport cabins. She thought of her father in Cleveland, standing at a hardware store counter with a receipt in his hand, while a clerk asked him 3 times if the credit card was really his. She thought of her mother, calm and tired, whispering in the car afterward. Stand straight, baby. Make them hear you without giving them the anger they came looking for. So Ava stayed still. I am not making this difficult, she said. I am sitting in the seat I paid for. Claire's face tightened as if the words had touched something buried. Mark turned toward her. Claire, contact Captain Harris. Claire hesitated. It was brief, but Ava saw it. Emily saw it. Margaret saw it. A human hesitation, a chance to step back. Claire swallowed. Mark, maybe we should verify with ground services one more time. Diane's head snapped toward her. Mark's voice became flat. Claire, just her name. That was all it took. Claire looked down at the tablet, then away. Yes, sir, she said. Ava watched the small surrender happen in real time. It hurt more than the insult. Prejudice from Diane was ugly, but predictable. Cowardice from someone who knew better was harder to forgive. Claire moved toward the front galley with stiff steps. Emily adjusted her phone, careful not to draw attention. Her recording timer kept climbing. She could feel sweat under her sleeve. She wanted to stop. She wanted someone older, braver, more official to handle this. Then she looked at Ava. Ava was alone in the middle of a full cabin. That made Emily keep recording. Diane leaned close to Mark. her voice low but not low enough. This is exactly why standards matter. Margaret's eyes sharpened. Standards for whom? Diane blinked, startled that the older woman had spoken. Excuse me? Margaret did not raise her voice. That is what I am asking. Standards for whom? The cabin shifted again. Mark stepped between them slightly. Ma'am, please remain seated and let the crew handle this. Margaret looked up at him. I have been seated. I have also been listening. The words were gentle, but they carried the strength of age, grief, and experience. People over 60 know something younger people sometimes forget. A quiet voice can still shake a room if it tells the truth. Before Mark could respond, the cockpit door opened. Captain William Harris stepped out. He was 60 tall, silver-haired, with 4 gold stripes on his shoulders and the practiced seriousness of a man who had spent decades being obeyed. His uniform was spotless. His expression was already decided. That was the first thing Ava noticed. Not curious, decided. Claire stood behind him, pale beneath her makeup. She did not look at Ava. Mark straightened as the captain approached. Diane sat taller, as if rescue had arrived wearing epaulets. Captain Harris stopped beside seat 2A and looked down at Ava. Miss Morgan, he said, my crew tells me you are refusing to cooperate. Ava lifted her eyes to his. Captain, your crew has not asked the right question. His brow tightened. And what question would that be? Ava placed one hand on her boarding pass. Why is the passenger with the confirmed seat the one being threatened? Captain Harris did not answer right away. He looked at the boarding pass beneath Ava's hand, then at Mark, then at Claire. He saw the strain in their faces. He saw Diane Whitaker sitting too straight, waiting for him to restore the world she trusted. What he did not see was Ava. Not fully. Not as a person. Only as a delay. Captain Harris had spent more than 30 years in commercial aviation. He knew storms, mechanical warnings, medical emergencies, angry passengers, drunk passengers, frightened passengers. He knew how quickly a cabin could become unsafe. But experience can become a blindfold when a person stops asking questions. He folded his hands behind his back. Miss Morgan, federal aviation rules require passengers to comply with crew instructions. Ava nodded once. Safety instructions, yes. This is a crew instruction. No, Captain, she said. This is a customer preference being dressed up as authority. The sentence struck the cabin like a dropped glass. Mark's jaw hardened. Claire stared at the floor. Diane's face tightened into a sharp, offended line. Captain Harris breathed through his nose. He did not like being corrected in front of passengers. He did not like the phones pointed at him. He did not like the feeling that control was slipping, not because of danger, but because a woman in seat 2A was making him explain himself. Ma'am, I am not here to debate language. Ava looked up at him. That is unfortunate. Language is how people hide unfairness. Margaret Lewis whispered, Lord have mercy, under her breath. Emily kept filming. Captain Harris heard the whisper. His face flushed. Diane leaned forward. Captain, I hope Crestline Air still values passengers who have supported this company for years. Ava turned slightly. A company should value truth longer than habit. Diane's lips parted, then closed. For 1 second, she looked smaller, then pride rushed back in. This woman is creating a scene. No, Ava said. You created the scene when you tried to take what was not yours. The words were quiet. They were devastating. A low murmur moved through the cabin again. This time, it did not disappear. Captain Harris lifted one hand. Ladies and gentlemen, please remain seated and allow us to resolve this. But resolution was no longer the word. Everyone could feel it. This was a record now. A witness, a test. Mark stepped closer to the captain and spoke low. We have boarding nearly complete. If we do not clear this, we may lose our slot. That was the sentence Captain Harris needed. Schedule, order, procedure. The familiar tools of a man trained to treat disruption as the enemy. He turned back to Ava. Miss Morgan, I am asking you one final time. Will you accept another first-class seat so this flight can depart? Ava's face was still, but inside her something ached. She thought of all the times dignity had been treated like a luxury item. Available to some, conditional for others. She thought of how often people called peace the absence of complaint, not the presence of justice. Then she looked at the captain. No, one word, clean, final. A child's laugh drifted faintly from economy, unaware first class had become a courtroom. Captain Harris's expression closed. Then I will request airport security. Claire's breath caught. Captain, she said softly, maybe we should verify with ground services one more time. It was the second time she had tried. Weakly, late, but real. Mark turned on her. Claire, again, just her name. This time it sounded like a door shutting. Claire's eyes glistened, but she stepped back. Ava saw the fear in her face. Fear of losing a job. Fear of a report. Fear of Diane. Fear of Mark. Fear of becoming responsible for the truth she had helped bury. Fear was understandable, but it was not innocence. Diane smiled, small and satisfied. Thank you, Captain. Captain Harris tapped the service phone near the forward galley and spoke toward the door. We need airport security at the aircraft door for passenger removal. First class. Seat 2A. Emily's hand trembled for the first time. She steadied it with both hands. Margaret turned toward her husband, who had been silent beside her. Harold, this is wrong. Harold Lewis swallowed. He was 71, a retired accountant, a man who had avoided public conflict his whole life. He looked at Ava, then at the captain, then at the phones. I know, he whispered. Then say something, Margaret said. Harold looked down. That silence hurt Margaret more than the captain's order. Not because she did not love him, because love did not erase cowardice. Ava heard none of that clearly, but she felt the shape of it. The cabin was full of people wrestling with themselves. Some were afraid. Some were ashamed. Some were deciding what kind of person they would be when the story was told later. Her phone buzzed again. Rachel Monroe, Morgan Systems Executive Office. A text appeared beneath the missed call. Ava, Crestline Board is asking why you have not joined the pre-meeting call. Ava looked at the message. Then she turned the phone face down. Not yet. The reveal would come. But not before the choice was plain. Not before everyone saw what Crestline Air did when it believed the woman in seat 2A had no power at all. The cabin door opened with a soft mechanical sigh, and 2 airport security officers stepped inside. The sound was small. The meanings was not. First class went still in a different way now. Not the awkward stillness of people watching an argument, but the colder silence of people realizing a line had been crossed and nobody had stopped it. Officer Daniel Price came first. Late 40s, broad shoulders, careful eyes. Behind him was Officer Megan Ellis, younger, alert, one hand resting near her radio instead of her cuffs. They did not storm in. They walked into a story already shaped for them by uniforms, titles, and assumptions. Captain Harris met them at the front of the aisle. Seat 2A, he said. Passenger refusing crew instruction. Ava heard him reduce the entire truth to 5 words. Refusing crew instruction. Not valid ticket. Not confirmed seat. Not another passenger wants her place. Not money changing hands. Just refusal. It was always easier to punish refusal than examine why obedience had been demanded. Officer Price approached Ava. His face was professional, but his eyes paused on the boarding pass and platinum card sitting neatly on the tray table. Ma'am, he said, we have been asked to escort you off the aircraft. Ava picked up her phone and opened the camera. Claire's face drained. Mark's eyes narrowed. Diane rolled her eyes and whispered, here we go. Ava held the phone steady. Her hand did not shake. For the record, my name is Ava Morgan. I am seated in seat 2A, which I purchased and confirmed 3 weeks ago. I have shown my boarding pass and Crestline Platinum card. I have not raised my voice. I have not threatened anyone. I am being asked to leave because another passenger prefers my seat. The hat cabins absorbed every word. Officer Ellis glanced at Captain Harris. Something changed in her expression. Not defiance, not yet, but a question. Captain Harris stiffened. Ma'am, recording is not necessary. Ava looked at him through the phone screen. It is very necessary. Mark stepped in. She is creating a disturbance now. No, Margaret Lewis said. Every head turned. Her voice was thin, but it held. She was 70, maybe a little older, with silver hair tucked beneath a blue travel scarf, and hands that trembled slightly over her purse. She has been calmer than everyone standing over her, Margaret said. I saw her ticket. I heard what was said. This is wrong. Her husband Harold touched her sleeve. Margaret. No, she said, without looking at him. Not this time. Diane snapped toward her. You do not know the whole story. Margaret looked at Diane with tired, honest disgust. I know exactly what I am looking at. Emily's camera caught it all. Margaret's courage, Diane's anger. Claire's hand hovering near the pocket where the folded bills sat like a secret burning through cloth. Officer Price cleared his throat. Ma'am, we can sort this out in the terminal. Ava turned her phone toward him. Am I being accused of a crime? No, ma'am. Am I a safety threat? He hesitated. Captain Harris cut in. She is delaying departure. Ava did not look away from Officer Price. That was not my question. The silence that followed was sharp enough to wound. Officer Ellis looked down at the boarding pass again. Ava Morgan. Seat 2A, first class. Everything clear. Everything ordinary. Everything turned ugly by people who refused to let ordinary be enough. Officer Price exhaled. No, ma'am. You are not being accused of a crime. Then say on camera why I am being removed. Mark's voice hardened. Because the crew requested removal. Ava turned the phone toward him. And why did the crew request it? His mouth opened. Nothing clean came out. Diane leaned forward, furious now. Because you are being difficult. Ava turned the camera toward her. Difficult means refusing to surrender what belongs to me. The words landed in every row. Claire's eyes filled. For 1 second, she looked like she might speak. Her lips parted, then closed. Emily saw it and kept recording. The money in Claire's pocket seemed to weigh more than her body. Captain Harris made his decision because pride had pushed him too far to retreat. Officers, remove her. Officer Price looked pained, but he nodded. Ma'am, please gather your belongings. Ava held the camera on her own face for 1 quiet second. Her eyes glistened. No tear fell. Then she packed. Charger, documents, black leather tote, boarding pass, platinum card. Every movement was slow, precise, dignified. The cabin watched like a jury watching evidence being sealed. As Ava stepped into the aisle, Diane's smile returned. Small, triumphant, deadly foolish. Ava stopped beside her. You think this ends with a seat? Diane looked up with a sneer. Does it not? Ava's phone buzzed again in her hand. Rachel Monroe. Then a text filled the screen. Crestline Board is now in emergency hold. They need their largest voting partner on the call. For the first time, Diane saw enough to understand she had missed something. Her smile weakened. Ava walked forward between the officers, past raised phones and silent mouths toward the open aircraft door. Behind her, seat 2A waited. Diane moved toward it like a queen returning to a throne. But the throne had already become a witness stand. The jet bridge felt colder than the cabin. Ava walked between Officer Price and Officer Ellis, with her phone still in her hand. The camera was still recording the gray walls, the fluorescent lights, the hollow echo of rolling luggage somewhere beyond the gate door. Behind her, the aircraft door closed with a heavy click. It sounded final. It was not. Inside the plane, Diane Whitaker lowered herself into seat 2A with the satisfaction of a person who believed comfort proved victory. She smoothed her cream blazer, adjusted the armrest, and placed her handbag where Ava's laptop had been. But the air around her had changed. No one smiled. No one congratulated her. Margaret Lewis stared at the back of Diane's head as if it carried a stain. Harold sat beside her, pale and silent, ashamed in the quiet way men become when they know they should have stood sooner. Across the aisle, Emily Foster looked down at her phone and replayed the last few seconds she had captured. Ava's voice came through the tiny speaker. Difficult means refusing to surrender what belongs to me. Emily's throat tightened. She had seen ugly things through camera lenses before. City council meetings where poor families were ignored. School board fights where parents cried into microphones. Hospital hallways where one person begged for help while another explained policy. But this was different because it had happened in first class, in soft leather, under warm lights. With polite voices, that made it worse. Claire moved through the cabin offering water no one had asked for. Her hands shook so badly that the ice clicked against the plastic cups. When she reached Diane, Diane touched her wrist. You handled that well, Diane whispered. Claire flinched. Emily zoomed in. Diane leaned closer. People have to learn there are standards. Claire pulled her hand away as if burned. Can I get you anything before takeoff? Champagne, Diane said. The good one. Near the galley, Mark Sullivan stood with Captain Harris. His shoulders were stiff. His face had the false calm of a man trying to convince himself the worst was over. "It will fade," Mark muttered. "Once we are airborne, people will move on." Captain Harris looked toward the rows of silent passengers. "Let us hope so." But people did not move on anymore. Not when truth had witnesses. Not when every pocket held a camera. Not when humiliation could travel faster than any aircraft before the wheels even left the runway. Emily opened a new file. She saved the raw footage first. Then she saved a backup to the cloud. Her fingers moved quickly now, almost professionally. Clip 1, Claire asking Ava to move. Clip 2, Diane saying real customers. Clip 3, the folded bills entering Claire's hand. Clip 4, Mark threatening removal. Clip 5, Captain Harris calling security. Clip 6, Ava walking out with dignity sharper than any accusation. Her hands shook only once. Then she steadied them. In the terminal, Officer Price guided Ava to a quiet seating area near the Crestline service desk. Travelers hurried past with coffee cups, neck pillows, tired children, and boarding passes clenched between fingers. Life continued in the indifferent rhythm of American airports. Officer Price lowered his voice. "Ma'am, I am sorry. We will need a brief statement." Ava looked at him. "You did what they asked you to do." He nodded, but the words did not comfort him. Officer Ellis lingered after Price stepped aside to speak with a gate supervisor. "I saw your ticket," she said quietly. Ava met her eyes. "Then you saw enough." Ellis swallowed. "Sometimes doing the job does not feel like doing the right thing." "No," Ava said. "It does not." There was no cruelty in her voice. That made it worse. Ellis nodded once and walked away. Ava sat alone beneath the white airport lights. Her reflection hovered faintly in the dark window beside the gate. She looked composed from the outside. Inside, something had gone perfectly still, not numb, focused. She opened her email to Rachel Monroe, to legal counsel, to board relations, to communications, subject, Crestline incident, immediate preservation. Her thumbs moved with quiet precision. "I was removed from Crestline Air Flight 712 after refusing to surrender my confirmed first-class seat to another passenger. Video evidence exists. Multiple witnesses recorded the incident. Preserve all Crestline contract materials. Prepare shareholder file. Do not contact Crestline yet. Let them act first." She hit send. Then she opened Rachel's message. "The board is asking if you are joining." Ava typed back. "In 10 minutes. Tell them I have new data." On the aircraft, the plane pushed back from the gate. Diane raised her champagne glass, but her hand was not steady anymore. Across the cabin, Emily pressed upload. Her caption was simple. "Black woman with valid first-class ticket removed so white VIP could take her seat. Cash appears to change hands. Crestline Air explained this." She tagged the airline. She tagged 3 news stations. She tagged 2 civil rights accounts and 1 aviation watchdog. Then she tapped post. The video went live while the aircraft was still taxiing. By the time the wheels lifted off the runway, the truth was already airborne ahead of them. Emily Foster thought the video might get a few thousand views. She was wrong. By the time Crestline Flight 712 climbed above the clouds, her phone was vibrating so hard in her palm that she had to grip it with both hands. First came strangers, then aviation bloggers, then local reporters, then people who had lived some version of that moment in banks, hospitals, restaurants, college offices, hotels, and first-class cabins where their receipts had never been enough. One comment appeared again and again. She had the ticket. Why was she removed? Emily sat frozen in row 4. The blue glow of her screen reflected in her eyes. She watched the view count jump from hundreds to thousands, then tens of thousands. Every refresh felt like a heartbeat growing louder. Margaret leaned across the aisle. "Is it online?" Emily nodded. Her voice came out thin. "It is spreading." Margaret looked toward Diane, who was now sitting in Ava's seat with a glass of champagne in her hand. "Good," Margaret said. Diane pretended not to hear, but she heard everything now. Every whisper, every phone vibration, every breath that did not welcome her victory. Seat 2A no longer felt like a throne. It felt like a spotlight. Claire moved through the cabin with a tray of drinks, but her steps had lost their rhythm. Twice she nearly spilled sparkling water. Once she forgot a passenger's order and apologized in a voice so small it barely survived the cabin noise. Mark noticed. He motioned her into the galley. "Get yourself together," he whispered. Claire's eyes flashed with panic. "People are posting." "They always post," Mark said. "It will pass." "No." She shook her head. "Emily has the cash on video." Mark went still. For the first time all morning, authority left his face. "What cash?" Claire stared at him, horrified by the lie arriving too late to save them. Mark. His throat moved. He looked toward Diane, then toward the rows of passengers, then toward the cockpit door, as if a better version of events might be hiding behind it. But truth is merciless once recorded. In the terminal, Ava sat in a quiet business lounge with her laptop open. Airport noise moved around her like water around stone. She had joined the emergency board call with her camera on, her posture straight, her voice steady enough to frighten every executive listening. Rachel Monroe appeared in a smaller window from Morgan Systems headquarters in New York. Behind her, two attorneys sat with open notebooks and hard eyes. "Ava," Rachel said softly, "you need to know something." "I am listening. The video is viral." Ava did not blink. "How viral?" Rachel glanced down. "Over 1 million views in under an hour. National outlets are asking for confirmation. Crestline's social accounts are being flooded. The board is already aware." On the main screen, Crestline's interim board chair, Charles Whitman, shifted in his leather chair. He was 63, gray-haired, careful with language, and suddenly not careful enough. "Ms. Morgan, we were told there was a passenger disruption." Ava looked directly into the camera. "There was a disruption, Mr. Whitman. It was caused by your crew. No one spoke," she continued. "I was seated in my confirmed first-class seat. I presented my boarding pass. I presented my platinum card. I asked for policy. I received pressure. I asked for fairness. I received threats. I asked why I was being removed. No one could answer." Charles looked down at his hands. "We are reviewing the matter." "No," Ava said. The word was soft, final. Every face on the screen froze. "You are not reviewing a matter. You are facing a culture failure that happened in public because your employees believed the person they were humiliating had no power." One of the attorneys beside Rachel lifted his pen. Ava's eyes sharpened. "Here is what your team did not know. Morgan Systems is the finalist for your $50 million digital transformation contract. My affiliated funds also hold a major voting position in Crestline Air, the same company whose board is waiting on my approval today." Charles went pale. Somewhere on the call, a director whispered, "Oh my God." Ava heard it. She let the silence breathe. Then she said, "Yes, now you understand the scale. But I want to be clear. This is not about my power. It is about what your company does to people when it thinks they have none." Rachel lowered her eyes. Even after years of working with Ava, moments like this still moved her. Not because Ava was loud, because she was controlled, because every word carried judgment sharpened by restraint. Ava opened a file on her laptop. "I am requesting immediate preservation of all flight records, crew communications, passenger manifests, cabin video where available, and employee reports. I am also requesting an emergency shareholder meeting today." Charles swallowed. "Today?" "Yes," Ava said. "Today." At 30,000 feet, Diane's champagne had gone warm. Her phone buzzed on the tray table. A message from a friend appeared. "Diane, is this you in this video?" She stared at the screen. Her reflection stared back from the black glass, smaller than she remembered. Charles Whitman did not speak for several seconds. On the video call, his face had the stillness of a man watching a bridge collapse while standing on it. Around him, Crestline directors shifted in their seats. Some looked down at phones. Some whispered to assistants just outside the frame. One woman pressed both hands against her mouth as if she could hold back the future. Ava watched them all. She saw the calculation begin. Not sorrow, not yet. Risk, market risk, legal risk, contract risk, reputation risk. The great corporate alarm bells always rang louder when dignity became financial exposure. Rachel Monroe leaned closer to her camera. "We have 3 additional witness videos now," she said. One angle clearly shows Mrs. Whitaker passing folded cash to Claire Reynolds. Another shows Mark Sullivan stepping between the camera and Mrs. Whitaker immediately afterward. Charles closed his eyes. A director named Martin Blake muttered, "This is a nightmare." Ava's gaze cut toward him. "No, Mr. Blake. A nightmare is being removed from a seat you paid for while strangers record your humiliation. What you are experiencing is consequence." No one answered. The sentence settled over the call like a verdict. At 30,000 feet, Captain Harris received the first message through company operations. Urgent. Viral passenger incident involving Flight 712. Preserve all crew reports. Do not delete communications. He read it twice in the cockpit. His throat tightened. Outside the windshield, the sky was blue and merciless. Clouds stretched beneath the aircraft like white fields. Everything looked peaceful from that altitude. That was the deception of distance. From far enough away, harm always looked smaller. In the forward galley, Mark gripped the counter with both hands. Claire stood across from him, pale and trembling. Diane sat alone in seat 2A, refreshing her phone as the video appeared on more accounts, more headlines, more angry threads. A text from her law partner came in. "Diane, call me immediately. Is that you handing money to the crew?" She locked the screen, then unlocked it, then locked it again. Her mouth had gone dry. Claire whispered, "What do we do?" Mark snapped, "We do nothing. That video shows everything. It shows an angle," he said. "No," Claire said, and her voice cracked. "It shows the truth." Mark looked at her then. Really looked. Fear had stripped the service smile from her face. She was no longer the polished attendant trained to please wealth. She was a woman cornered by her own choice. His anger rose because her fear threatened to become confession. "You accepted that money," he said. Claire stared at him. "You saw it. I saw nothing." That was the old system speaking through him. Deny, narrow, reframe. Wait for power to protect power. But power had changed seats. Back in the lounge, Ava opened another document. Her legal counsel, Raymond Cole, a former federal prosecutor with steel-gray eyes, spoke with controlled force. "Ava, the evidence supports multiple claims. Discriminatory treatment, breach of contract, possible bribery involving airline staff, retaliatory removal. We can file aggressively." Ava looked at the screen. "We will prepare," she said. "But first, I want the board to answer." Charles lifted his head slowly. "Answer what? Whether Crestline Air believes what happened to me was an isolated incident or evidence of a culture your leadership has ignored." The questions did not need volume. It needed courage. And no one on the Crestline side had enough of it yet. Martin Blake cleared his throat. "Ms. Morgan, with respect, we should avoid drawing conclusions before an investigation is complete." Ava's eyes sharpened. "With respect, Mr. Blake, I was investigated in public by your employees, while the passenger who actually caused the conflict was rewarded with my seat. You were comfortable with immediate conclusions when the target was me." Rachel looked down, hiding the flash of pride in her eyes. Charles rubbed his forehead. He had known Crestline had problems. Complaints buried in quarterly summaries, training audits postponed, senior crew protected because wealthy passengers liked them. A culture of soft exceptions and quiet favoritism, smiles for some, suspicion for others. He had called it legacy service. Now it had a harsher name. Ava spoke again. "I am calling an emergency shareholder meeting at 4 Eastern. Full attendance. Legal present. Communications present. Human resources present. I will present evidence. I will also present demands." A director leaned forward. "Demands?" "Yes," Ava said. Her voice lowered. "Immediate suspension of Claire Reynolds, Mark Sullivan, and Captain William Harris, pending termination review. Full disclosure of the incident. Preservation of all records. A public apology that does not hide behind the word misunderstanding. Independent culture audit. Mandatory bias intervention across all customer-facing divisions, and a board-level ethics committee with external oversight." Charles looked as though each demand had struck him physically. "And if the board refuses?" Ava did not pause. "Morgan Systems withdraws from the $50 million transformation contract. My affiliated funds begin review of divestment options for our voting stake. And every piece of evidence goes to regulators, shareholders, and the public." Silence. Then Rachel added, almost gently, "The media is already calling this Crestline's defining crisis." On Flight 712, Diane's phone lit again. This time it was a headline. Black CEO removed from first-class seat for white VIP. Crestline Air faces discrimination firestorm. Diane stared at one word. CEO. Her fingers went cold. For the first time since boarding, she looked at the empty aisle where Ava had walked away, and she understood. The woman she had forced out of seat 2A had not lost power when she left the plane. She had taken it with her. By 4 Eastern, Crestline Air's emergency shareholder meeting felt less like a corporate call and more like a courtroom. Faces filled the screen in neat little squares. Directors, attorneys, human resources leaders, communications officers with tired eyes. Outside Crestline's Chicago headquarters, reporters had already gathered near the lobby, their camera lights glowing against the late afternoon glass. Ava Morgan appeared from a quiet conference room in New York. She wore the same navy blazer she had worn on the aircraft. No dramatic wardrobe change. No attempt to look wounded. That unsettled them most. She looked prepared. Raymond Cole sat beside her. Rachel Monroe sat on the other side, with witness statements arranged in front of her like evidence on a trial table. Charles Whitman opened the meeting with a dry mouth. Ms. Morgan, members of the board, we are here to address this morning's incident involving Flight 712. Ava leaned forward slightly. Mr. Whitman, before we begin, I would like the record to reflect that the word incident is insufficient. Charles froze. Ava continued. This was not a lost bag, not a weather delay. It's not a misunderstanding. This was the public removal of a paying black passenger from a confirmed first-class seat to satisfy the preference of a wealthy white passenger. It involved crew pressure, misuse of authority, and what appears on video to be cash exchanged for favorable treatment. Raymond shared his screen. The first clip played. Claire standing over Ava. Diane behind her, chin lifted. Ava holding up her boarding pass and platinum card. This is my assigned seat. The second clip played. Diane leaning close. Folded bills slipping into Claire's hand. Claire's fingers closing, Mark looking away. A communications executive covered her mouth. The third clip played. Captain Harris saying she was delaying departure. Then Ava's voice. Am I being accused of a crime? No, ma'am. Am I a safety threat? The pause was devastating. The evidence did not shout. It did not need to. When the clips ended, Ava looked at the screen. I want to know who trained your employees to believe this was acceptable. No one answered. And if no one trained them, I want to know who allowed the culture to grow until they felt safe doing it. Martin Blake shifted in his chair. Termination before a full process may expose us. Raymond's voice was calm. Your company is already exposed. The question is whether you intend to reduce harm or defend it. That ended the debate. The vote was called. One by one, the directors answered. Yes. Yes. Claire Reynolds, Mark Sullivan, and Captain William Harris were removed from duty pending termination proceedings and outside investigation. Crestline issued a full public disclosure, not a soft apology, not a vague misunderstanding. Acknowledgement, responsibility, preservation of records, referral of the cash exchange to outside counsel, a permanent ban review for Diane Whitaker. At 30,000 feet, Flight 712 began its descent into New York. Captain Harris received the notice before landing. His hand trembled on the tablet. Mark read his in the galley and went gray. Claire sat on a jump seat and cried without sound. Diane's law firm called an emergency ethics meeting. Her name was already online, attached to a video she could not explain away. Back in New York, Ava closed her laptop after the vote. Rachel exhaled beside her. Are you okay? Ava looked toward the window where city lights were beginning to glow. No, she said quietly. But this is a beginning. 3 months later, Crestline Air launched a reform program that touched every customer-facing division. Independent auditors reviewed complaints that had been ignored for years. Bias intervention training became mandatory. Crew escalation policies were rewritten. Passenger removal procedures now required documentation, supervisor verification, and review when no safety threat existed. Emily Foster received a journalism award for her footage. Margaret and Harold Lewis were invited to speak at a company training session about bystander courage. Officer Megan Ellis later helped design conflict resolution guidance for airport security teams. Ava did not ask for a statue. She did not ask for praise. She signed the $50 million technology contract only after the reforms were complete and publicly verified. Because mercy without accountability is weakness, and accountability without humanity is just another kind of power. Late one evening, Ava stood alone in her office overlooking Manhattan. The city lights stretched beneath the glass like small fires. She thought of her father in Cleveland. She thought of her mother whispering, "Stand straight, baby." A soft smile crossed her face. Seat 2A had never been about a seat. It had been about a question every society eventually faces. Who deserves dignity? The answer had always been simple. Everyone. If this story stayed with you, take a moment to like the video and subscribe for more stories about courage, justice, and the quiet strength it takes to stand tall. And in the comments, write these 3 words. Respect changes everything.